You expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Written by the accomplished team of authors Neil Purvis and Robert Wade, directed by Sam Mendes, let's talk about 2012's Skyfall. I always say this film is a celebration of James Bond. This film celebrates the legacy of the series, it celebrates the character, it celebrates the past, but also the then present, and it does a great job. I love the overall theme of the film. It's about, a character who's maybe from a bygone era, an older James Bond, dealing with a new world. And this is the overall theme. This is even part of the plot. And I think they did a great job, calling him Old Dog with new tricks. And there are many references to the pasts. At one point, M asks him, "Where are we going?" He says, "We're going to the past." He gets offered a knife instead of a gun, with the sentence, "Sometimes the old ways are the best." This is the overall theme. I think it's very interesting. It's also the most beautiful looking film of the series, in my opinion. Visually, the most stunning of them all. I mean, look at this. The lighting, the locations, the color grading, it's an art piece. You can pause the film at any point and make a screenshot, and you got a work of art. You got poster material. Just pause it somewhere. It's worth making a poster out of it. It's that beautiful. And I admit I'm a little guilty of being a style over substance guy. So that's very important to me. And especially with a Bond film, visuals are very important. But it's also a great story. And as I said, it's also an interesting overall theme. So 2012, was an interesting time. I remember watching this film at the cinema, and it was one of the most unforgettable cinema experiences of my life. It was November, it was a very cold winter, and me and my then girlfriend were trying to get into the film, and we went to, I think, 3 different cinemas, 2 or 3, and it was booked out. It was, it was packed. There was not a single place left. So they sent us away. And I have never experienced such things in my life. I was pretty upset. But at one point we finally found a cinema which got some places left, and it was an unforgettable experience. The crowd was even cheering. It was an amazing atmosphere, and of course that contributes to my memory, to my nostalgia for the film. So Skyfall got a very special place in my heart. Back to the overall theme of the film, I want to talk about this a little bit. I said they talk a lot about the past in this film. James Bond, is kind of an older, washed-up version of himself. And what's so interesting about this, it's also a metaphor for the time, the early 2010s. There was a retro wave in pop culture. There was 80s music was coming back, synth sounds, and even in movies, the 2000s were very much forward-looking. Not the Bond series, but movies in general. Very futuristic and CGI heavy. And with Christopher Nolan coming to the scene and making his Batman films, there was a demand for a little more down-to-earth, in terms of effects, in terms of storytelling, taking characters a little more serious. And this film is inspired by Christopher Nolan. It's inspired by The Dark Knight. It's inspired by the more down-to-earth tone of those films. And at the same time, it gets deep into the retro hype, of those days, of the early 2010s. And they do a great job combining those things. A more down-to-earth story, better character development, but at the same time bringing back those charming elements of the old films. So it's not a soulless or antiseptic film. It got a lot of heart because of those charming elements. There was a demand for the old characters like Q or Moneypenny, stuff like that, the old car, and they did it, and they did it very well. Ben Whishaw is Q in this film. He's pretty much the opposite of Bond. As I said, the overall theme, James Bond is from a bygone era, a rude character, you would call it a toxic masculinity or whatever. And Q is pretty much the opposite, a young and nerdy guy. And the chemistry between those two is amazing. It's very funny. And it's also talking about the overall theme of the film. Q giving James Bond and talking about exploding pens and how we're not doing things like this anymore. And that's, of course, a metaphor for the time. We are not doing those over-the-top, silly things like in the 90s anymore or in the early 2000s. We are more down-to-earth these days. So you only get, a little thing and nothing too silly. And I love this. I love these metaphors. They're all over the movie and they work so well. Very, very charming, very meta, And they bring back Moneypenny, Naomi Harris, and the brilliant thing they did, you don't even know she's Moneypenny. You get to know she's Moneypenny at the end of the film, and that was very smart that they did this. It was such a surprise for me at the time. I wasn't online as much as I am today, so I somehow managed to avoid spoilers, and I didn't see this coming. Same thing they do with M, with the new M. Ralph Fiennes, perfectly cast. I think he's the perfect choice for M. He looks like I imagine M. He's very British, stylish, charismatic, interesting. I love it. And they do the same thing with him. His name is Mallory, so he's the new M, and you only get to know he's M by the end of the film. They also bring back M's old office, so it feels like the good old times when this movie is ending. It really feels like, coming full circle, the series coming full circle. Like, hey, it's a new world, but some things never change for the better. Some things never change, and that's for the better. And they do such a great job. They bring back, the old DB5, the Aston Martin DB5. And when they first show the car, and M asks Bond, where are we going? And he says, to the past, and then shows her the car. The crowd at the cinema was cheering. They were clapping and shouting, and I will never forget that. And it was so great to celebrate James Bond with those strangers. And that's why I always say this film is a celebration of James Bond. It's a celebration of the series and the legacy of the characters Q, M, Moneypenny, the old car, and there are, of course, a lot of inside jokes going on. And yeah, as I said, I love the meta approach, And Raoul Silva, our villain in this film, played by Javier Bardem, it's also a classic Bond villain. The way he looks, with the blonde hair and the cream-colored suit and all those things, he looks very strange. I guess there are some Goldfinger references in his look. And he's a classic Bond villain, also inspired by the 2010s, also inspired by Christopher Nolan's Joker, for example. So everything in this film is a combination of old and new. Also this character, his monologue with the rats, first meeting Bond, this is one of the best scenes in the Bond series. This is classic James Bond. This reminded me of the dialogue Sean Connery had with Dr. No, for example. It reminded me of the cat and mouse play between Sean Connery and Goldfinger. Yeah, it's about the dialogue. It's such classy and interesting and charismatic talk, and it's such a charismatic villain. The whole story he's telling with the rats and, you know, the little homoerotic thing going on here. Silver touching Bond's legs, and you know, you don't really know what's going on here, and you get a little uncomfortable watching it, but I was laughing at the same time because it was funny. It was an amazing villain. We have a classic Bond girl with Bernice Mallow. She has not a lot of screen time. I'm pretty sad. Would have loved to see her a little longer in the film, because yeah, she looks classy. She looks like, again, like coming from another time. And there's one of the most beautiful casino scenes in the series involving her character. They're in Macau. And I know it's built on Pinewood Studios, but it looks stunning, you know, the golden lighting and the wood and the dragons flying and the lanterns and this classy old school looking Bond girl. Bond dressed, you know, in his to the tens and ordering his martini. This is one of my favorite scenes of the Craig era. I think it's one of the best. It's one of my top 3 casino scenes in the Bond series. And yeah, Bernice Mallow was an interesting, charismatic, classy, old school Bond girl. Too bad she had not a lot of screen time, but I can live with it. Judi Dench's M was amazing, like she always was. She gives her best performance because she's such a big part of the plot of the film. Again, chemistry between Daniel Craig and Judi Dench was energizing. The whole theme with her being his mentor and Bond being her protege, and she even being something like a mother to him and even to the villain. That was very interesting, and I haven't seen such things in a Bond film before. So that was something completely new. And I guess you can argue that Judi Dench was somehow the Bond girl, the main Bond girl in this film. But that's okay with me because it was interesting, and it was character development done at its best. So I like that. The locations in this film are breathtaking. They are among the most atmospheric in the whole series. You got Shanghai in the beginning, very futuristic and drenched in neon lighting, and you know, the shadow fight, brilliantly done. And then you got the opposite with Macau. You know, it feels like from another time. You know, the whole wooden era and not a lot of electricity, and yeah, the lighting, the lanterns. I love that it takes place in London. Love that there are action scenes taking place in London. That feels very James Bond. And yeah, I missed seeing London in those films a little bit. I love that it gets a little more screen time. And the scenes in Scotland are highly atmospheric. How they lit the whole scenery when you know, Skyfall is burning. Highly atmospheric, beautiful looking. It has a very dark look and a very, again, timeless look, and they purposely did that. Going to the past, going to Bond's past. You know, there's you cannot tell which time it is in Scotland, you know, in the Highlands in Skyfall. So I love that. I love the locations and how they lit and the color grading. The action is great as always. You know, the whole train action in the beginning, the fight on the train, it's among the best action scenes in the Daniel Craig era. Yeah, so Skyfall, as I said, I have to say it again, it celebrates the legacy of Bond It's a little retro, but at the same time, it was very much a child of its time, and the combination works very well. The balance between those two elements works very well. Craig at his best. It's one of the most beautiful looking films of the series, and the title track is also a classic James Bond title track, Adele's song. The orchestral elements, her voice, the whole visuals, in the title sequence, perfect. That's what I was hoping for. Classic Bond with updated visuals. There's again, I cannot say something bad about those films, about this film, and that got me a little criticism from people I know. They told me, yeah, maybe it gets a little boring if you only talk about how much you love these films and you're not really criticizing them. And I have to say, I'm here to celebrate those films. I'm not here to criticize them because there's not a lot to criticize, because I love those films. I love all of them. There are some films I don't love as much as I love others, but overall, I just love those movies, and I celebrate them. I want to talk about why I love them, what I love about them, what's great about them. Maybe I can remind some of you about how great they are. Maybe I can convince some of you to watch them for the first time. Not sure about that. Or to rewatch it at least, to give it another chance if you don't like it that much. And some people, I know some fans, and they are heavily criticizing those films, and a little too heavy in my opinion, I don't like this, they should have done that. And I've always feel like, do you even like those films? I don't know, it doesn't seem to me like you really like those films, because there's way more criticism than celebrating those films. But everyone has his own way of talking about those films, and I love all of those videos, I love all of those reviews very much. But my approach is to celebrate those films. Hope you're not bored with it. Love the Bond community. See you very soon.